This is a really special occasion to have people coming together to take a look at something that has been long overdue. I want you to learn about We the People because it's because of We the People that we bring people together who have different points of view and who are thinking around the same track. And that track is, what are the connecting pieces for us as humans? Our youth is a connecting piece. Telling our stories is a connecting piece. Our mental well-being is a connecting piece. We all care about family. We all care about our neighbors. We care about having a community where we feel safe. We want to be friendly to our police. We want to be friendly to the people who care to make policies for us. We want to be heard by those people. And We the People is about how do we build the dialogue that opens that kind of conversation. So I welcome you here because I believe the multiple lenses that people bring to the table are the answer. And so tonight, the reason why there's 18 people speaking, there's probably 100 perspectives we need to be digging at or looking at. But these are the people who service who said, I do this work, I care about this work, and I want to share what I'm learning. And of course, I go out to meet all these people, and I'm learning all the time, and I think that's the best part of this project is my own personal growth. So much I didn't know. So thank you all. And I want to thank the audience for showing up for this wonderful talk. You know, I'm an optimist, but I'm not an optimist that doesn't have solid ground. I want to know what are we looking at? What are the challenges? Because I know those are the things, if we're real about what's happening, we can deal with it. So tonight I've asked people to speak candidly about what they're doing, what they're seeing, what they're noticing, what we need to do. And hopefully out of that will emerge conversations. This is just a testing ground. We're not going to solve anything here tonight. The hope is that we leave here saying, I need to do something about this, and I want to work with other people on it. So we're going to begin. Oh, let me just say, before we go, notice that on your table there is a program. Every speaker, there may be a speaker on here that's not. Frank, what's his name? He will not be here, but Jodie's going to be here, and she was meant to be here, and I'm sorry that we got that mixed up. The other thing is I want to say that there are 3 people who are the steering committee of We the People. Myself, Nicole Santos, and Barb Hyde, who's not here tonight. Also, the mental health team that came up with this idea. Most of those people I met for the first time, and I've lived in Warwick 50 years. Those are the people who set this ship sail. I'm just the wind keeping it going. So let's give a round of applause to the mental health team. There's 7 people who have done the work. So let's begin tonight. Yes, Nancy. Oh, let me explain that. And one of the things I was going to say is that we are grassroots. I mean, we're close to the ground. There's no money coming in unless it comes from the community. So I want you to consider tonight purchasing some of our cups, and Nicole Santos is out there. If you donate $15, you go home with a cup. If you want to buy a gift cup, we have a package. Whatever you want, we're servicing you tonight, okay? So let's get, did I miss anybody or anything? All right, I wanted the order of the speakers here. This is how I envision this night. Every speaker gets 5 minutes. I'm pretty serious about that. And I have someone who has my back. Nancy, raise your hand. Nancy has a blinking red light that goes on at 30 seconds before your time is up. Yeah, so we can keep this moving. We're just getting a taste. What doesn't come out in the 5 minutes is not, it's going to take much longer than we have tonight, but it's a way of keeping track of what we need to be looking at. So let's begin.
Okay. Do you want to use the microphone?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, let me explain this, Angela. What we're going to do is, as each person talks and the 5 minutes is up, introduce yourself when you first pick up the mic, and then when you're finished, I'll pass it to the next person who introduces themselves, and it goes down the room like that.
So introduce myself and do the presentation, or introduce everybody?
No, just yourself.
Okay.
And then after that group is finished, you're going to shift. The group in the white table will then be the panelists. These are the people who are going to give us a landscape of what's going on. These are the people who are doing the work we're trying to do that.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Beverly, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. It's nice to be with all of you. I'm happy to be here to talk about children's mental health. My name is Angela Turk. I'm the Director of Children's Services for the Department of Mental Health. And I did bring a couple of team members with me today. Connie Milan is our intake coordinator for children's single point of access. And Jerry Donovan is a therapist who actually works here in the Warwick district, in the school buildings. So I thought I went along with what Beverly asked me to do, and I wanted to tell you what we are seeing and hearing. And I'm going to read because I can't hold everything to memory. But we're seeing an increase in presentations in hospital emergency rooms. We're seeing an increase in suicidality, an increase in aggression, in parental distress. Our wait lists are very high for services. Staffing is a huge challenge right now in many, many sectors, especially in behavioral health. We're experiencing challenges with psychiatry and therapists. We're seeing an increase in Jen Ocasio's here in substance use, in acute intoxication and overdoses. And I'm hearing that directly from parents. I can't find a therapist or a psychiatrist. My child is anxious, depressed, refusing school, using drugs. Police are involved in a number of cases due to domestic disputes or suicidality involving children. And on a positive note, we're hearing that the social emotional programs that are going on in school are helpful to kids. So I wanted to share that. This is what we know. We know that suicide is the third leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. And approximately 1 in 5 children has an emotional, behavioral, and developmental condition. Close to half of youth with a mental health condition do not receive treatment or counseling. And we know that access matters. So the Orange County Department of Mental Health was able to provide therapy in school districts. We partner with school districts, and because of that, the access is easier, right? Because we're in schools. We were able to provide therapy for a total of 300 children and youth in our school-based clinics last year, and that's Warwick, Middletown, Newburgh, and Pine Bush. There were a total of 5,400 sessions and an average of 18 sessions per youth. So kids were being seen a lot when we provide that better access to care. From January 1st of 2022 to August 1st of 2022, 131 Orange County children and youth ages 0 to 17 that received Medicaid, these are kids on Medicaid, had more than 2 visits to the emergency room for behavioral health issues. In 2021, 820 youth under the age of 18 received services in county-operated clinics. So we have a clinic in Port Jervis and in Newburgh, and the satellite clinics that I just mentioned. In 2022, that number went up to 874. And then the top 3 diagnoses that we're seeing for ages 4 to 10 are ADHD, attention hyperactivity disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety and adjustment disorder. From 11 to 18, ages 11 to 18. It was depression, mood disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and anxiety. For our children's single point of access, those are children that have high-level needs that are really struggling in at least 2 life areas. 221 referrals to our children's single point of access, and 59 of those were from hospitals, so those kids came directly from hospitals, as opposed to 229 referrals in 2021. So we're going to beat that number this year. So what are we doing about this? We're providing mental health services through community-based clinics and the 4 school satellites that I mentioned. The county has a behavioral urgent care through Access Supports for Living, and they also have specialized programs, okay? We're assisting with connection to outpatient services, and you have these on your table, so the only last thing I want to tell you is take my number down. If you have any questions about needing supports or services, just call me. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tamara Scotto. I'm a psychologist. I work at Warwick Valley School District. Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to try to talk a little bit quick so that I can get everything in. But I do want to thank, we have with us this evening from Warwick Valley, we have our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum. So, we would like to say hi. And then we also have our Director of Guidance, Mary Fox. So both Megan and Mary are with us this evening. So I would like to just share some information regarding how the schools are able to support mental health. I really echo a lot of what Angela shared. And we partner very closely with Orange County Department of Mental Health as we have a satellite within our school district. We're very, very fortunate to have that because there's a need. And there aren't enough people to staff that need. So we're very fortunate to have that. So what we are able to offer in terms of mental health support, counseling, psychoeducation, crisis intervention, family support, community referrals, assessments, consultation, as well as a multi-tiered system of support. School services are really aimed at the whole student. So if their basic primary needs and safety aren't addressed, it's natural that they're going to struggle academically as well as socially in the academic environment. And many families lack the resources or knowledge, so many times they'll come directly to the school because they're not exactly sure as to where to go to seek help and support. Our multi-tiered approach is really to identify students. We have many meetings that involve our administration, health and attendance officer, counselors, psychologists, to really help identify those students that aren't coming to school, those that have significant discipline issues, those that are failing. Because a lot of these students, maybe it's not necessarily aware that they might have a mental health diagnosis, and the families are struggling with how to support their children. There are many times where the clinical staff are working very closely with the families, helping them make referrals, collaborating with teachers, administration, and outside providers to really just provide that continuity of care both in and out of the school setting. There are many supports in our community such as Orange County Department of Mental Health, Marikey, Access Supports for Living, the Mental Health Urgent Care, Mobile Mental Health. So there are many supports that we have, and really a lot of times it's just helping the families be aware of these supports and how to access them. We also have a lot of collaborative programs that we work at, collaborative with OU BOCES. One is the IDT program, or intensive day treatment, which is aimed at supporting students that have been hospitalized psychiatrically and helping them receive educational as well as psychiatric support as they transition back into the school. Unfortunately, yes, substance use is a huge problem. We have a Restart program for students that are suffering with substance usage, which also is a collaborative. It's a collaborative of OU BOCES, and the clinical portion for Restart is provided by Catholic Charities. For IDT, the clinical portion is provided by Rockland Children's Psychiatric Center. But just to touch a little bit on what we're seeing, oh my gosh, so Restart. In the past, that was a small program that was short term, and we were able to refer students. Last year, oh my goodness, there were so many referrals. That classroom was they had to, I think, expand to a second classroom, and it was very challenging getting students into that program, and their needs were significant, and I've been working with that program for 15 years, both programs, and the waiting list for both programs are also extremely significant, and many times you're not able to get students into those programs. So there are a lot of resources, but again, the needs are just so great. So part of what we do also is in regard to suicide prevention and training. Our staff is trained, our clinical staff are trained in the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, which is evidence-based. It's a screening tool that is used by many environments, such as schools, healthcare, first responders. Our faculty are also trained annually so that they are aware of statistics, role and responsibility of school personnel, some risk factors, warning signs, protective factors. I have to say we have awesome teachers, and really whenever they are concerned about students, they reach out to their counselor, to myself or the other psychologist, and we are able to, definitely get those kids immediately the help that they need. Unfortunately, as we found since we returned from COVID, the amount of risk assessments that we're doing has increased significantly, and those referrals also to hospitals or emergent care are happening a lot more. So I'm just going to go quickly to what we're seeing. So obviously since COVID, we've experienced a significant increase in students identified with mental health needs, 504 accommodation plans, special education needs, risk assessments, harassment, bullying, and there's also just an increase of anxiety and depression in terms of diagnoses that we've been seeing in the school and helping support.
We have to stop there.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Rader. I'm the Chief of Police here in the town of Warwick. I'm going to try and talk quickly as well, because usually I'm the one who puts the red lights on. Just to give you a little bit of an insight, I took some notes today on what I wanted to talk about. Hopefully I can do this in under 4 minutes and 45 seconds now. But in the past 2 weeks, just 2 significant mental health calls we've responded to. 2 weeks ago tonight, we handled a barricaded person, barricaded himself in his house for approximately 5 hours. He called the crisis line. He was on the line with them for probably 3.5 of those. But he was definitely in a bad way, and we were able to get him out and get him help without incident. And then unfortunately today we dealt with a young woman who took her life shortly after her children left for school, and unfortunately they came home and found her. So I don't want to be the dark cloud in the room, but this is the reality of what the police respond to. So just to go over my notes, I'm going to do this in under 5 minutes. In 2018, we responded to 131 mental health calls. 2019 was 149. 2020 was 161. That could be COVID. I'm not the expert on that one because the numbers did come down afterwards. 2021 was 115, and to date, we've been to 111. The thing with how we categorize our calls, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So there could be many other incidents that are classified differently. It could be intentional overdoses, medical emergencies, a laceration if a person attempted to take their life that way. So it'd be categorized differently. Missing persons is another possible mental health incident. So to really break down the 20-something thousand calls we go to a year to what exactly is mental health, it's probably much bigger than the numbers I'm giving you. So like I said, we respond to all the calls for service in the town. We use 311 and the Mobile Mental Health Crisis Unit. We work seamlessly together. Police officers have training. Some of the calls we go on, I will say we're in the same house sometimes, maybe 2 or 3 times in the same day. So We do our best to transport them to a local facility, which would be Garnett in Middletown or Bon Secours in Port Jervis. If it's a non-medical call, meaning that the person's in crisis but they haven't done anything medically to hurt themselves, 2 officers will transport the person to the hospital. If it's medically related, then 1 officer will roll with the ambulance, inside the ambulance, and another officer follows behind. So, you know, it is a time-consuming process for us, but we do stay with it from beginning to end and try to get everybody the help that they can get. When the officers are done, they complete a crisis intervention team incident report, and that is shared with the team in the county. Our administrative sergeant handles that. All overdoses that we respond to are also reported because some of them are intentional, many are accidental, but there is statistics taken on those as well. When the officers go through their basic training in the academy, they take persons with disability, and they also take the fundamental crisis intervention skills for law enforcement. That's a 40-hour class by itself, which also includes 8 hours of role play for the officers. That's a class that was added to the curriculum for the police academy. It's not something that the state requires, but Orange County is very good with that, and it's certainly needed, and I think we'll have a clearer understanding after all of us speak tonight. Any officers that we have that did not receive that training when they were in the academy, we try to fit them into the academy classes so that everybody does have that training. Well, I think I'm going to be under time. One of our goals for 2023 is to increase our level of training, both in crisis training, but also we want to train in autism and neurological illnesses, because many times when someone is calling for help, the symptoms are the same to the call taker. And for our first responders, it's very important that they understand right away whether they're dealing with a mental health incident or with something, you know, maybe a nonverbal autistic person, and it certainly steers the way that we have to respond to it, and also get the other resources needed, the information that they need, so we handle the incident properly, and the person gets the training they need. All right, I'm good. And finally, the last thing that we're going to do in 2023 is an officer wellness program, because we're out there helping everybody else, but at the end of the day, we got to make sure that the first responders receive the help as well, which will include chaplains and resources like have been outlined already, that when the officers or their families are in crisis, that we get the same help that we're offering. Thank you.
I'm a nurse practitioner and an emergency medical technician for Warwick Valley Ambulance. First of all, and most importantly, we volunteer. If anybody follows Facebook, I'm assuming the person who kind of slandered us a little bit is new to the community. Apparently there was a call and it took a little while for folks to respond. We, like everybody else, are very stressed for staff, and we're highly paid volunteers, so we're not paid. So having said that, we do everything we can to meet the needs of Warwick, and we have Station 2, which is Florida. We see everybody John sees when it comes to mental health, because we're immediately paged out. Our first priority is the safety of the patient, but we also have to think about our crew. Some of the things we've been dealing with is addiction with our young people. When you respond, most of us are parents or even grandparents, and you go into a home and you've got family that are upset, and you have a young person, or maybe even an older person, who has attempted suicide or have been successful. And as John said, the stress for us is there as well. We do everything we can to maintain professionalism, provide care. Unfortunately, with some of the stuff that's out there right now, Narcan does not work. There's fentanyl in just about everything, including marijuana. So just because it's legal, you need to know where you get it from. So having said that, some of the most unsafe things in a house are the medicine cabinets. Most addiction for younger people starts getting mom's Percocets or dad's Vicodin or whatever. Or the alcohol. Alcohol is usually readily available in most people's houses. Why do I say that? I mean, theoretically, it's illegal till they're 21. And yeah, they're my kid and I can let them drink. No. If that kid dies of an accidental overdose of alcohol poisoning, parents can be charged. And it can happen, and I've seen it sadly. I used to be the manager of the emergency room here in Warwick, and I saw too many things. So yes, it can happen in Warwick, and sadly it does. So what can we do? We can be aware. We can watch our kids. We can listen to our kids. We can decrease screen time. The cyberbullying is horrible. And it's not just for young people. Adults do it too. And unfortunately, Facebook is all over the place. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are, people see stuff on Facebook all the time. And now there's the Instagram, that disappears, but unfortunately, or fortunately, these guys have access to it. So if bullying happens, they can be found out, which is awesome. But it's there, and these are the kind of things that pressure the kids today. It used to be that you were worried about if you got an A on your English test. Now it's, oh my gosh, I wore a green shirt instead of a red shirt, so that kid's making fun of me. Or I don't have Air Jordans, so they're gonna pick on me and bully me. And all of this stuff adds up. And do we have a need for more mental health? Absolutely. Do I have the answer? No, but I hope we reach out to our new elected officials to make sure they provide the help we need. When I was the ER manager, one of the things I was participatory in was the Alcohol and Drug Council for the needs in the Warwick community. We have no free services except for the community health center. So if you are blessed to have insurance, you may be able to find a counselor. If you don't have insurance, guess what? They can't help you. And that, to me, is unconscionable in this day and age in this country. And yes, does it have an effect on our children and our populace? Absolutely. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I'll respond if you call because you need help in your house. Because yeah, I'm a highly paid volunteer, but it touches my heart when we come in and somebody is off the planet and we couldn't help them. Any questions? Yes?
No questions.
Go home. Sorry. I didn't get the red light. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Matthew May. I'm the medical director of the ER at Garnet. So I am the recipient of probably everyone to the right of me, and some of the people in the room. And to get the cat out of the bag, I am old enough to provide medical care at Garnet. Right. So when Bev contacted me, she asked me to talk a little bit about our experience from providing health care. And you've heard just kind of tidbits leak as we've worked our way down the table. So I'll just open that first. So the pandemic kind of set the tone for what we're experiencing now in a lot of ways, one of which is the patients coming in, but the other which is people providing care. And so what we get to see, especially from the hospital end, we're the experts in everyone's worst day in their life. When you're having a bad day, where do you go? You go to the ER. When you're having a medical emergency, psychiatric emergency, when you have a bad day at school, they come to us. That happened kind of times 50 when COVID struck. Especially with medical illness. I'm not going to get into too much of that, but the wounds that kind of the healthcare team sustained providing that kind of care has shown its face as it's carried on over 2, 3, and probably going into 4 or 5 years as we keep going. So trying to still deliver a quality product, meaning healthcare, especially when people need it more than ever, has been more and more challenging. So, knowing that in the background, what can you expect when you come to the emergency room, especially in the setting of an adolescent or a pediatric patient coming in for an overdose or for a mental health crisis? And I can tell you. So I actually was at work, now an hour and a half ago, so I sped over here. Drove very safely over here. The red light is in my other peripheral vision. so, you know, what I left behind me is we have a 6-bed pediatric ER that we've had to now triple in size in the face of RSV, but probably 20% of what we're seeing is still mental health crises in patients as young as 5, as young as 6. Patients with suicidal thoughts, patients with either thoughts of or successful attempts at overdosing. Social media is in the background, and so, you know, they come to us looking for help and parents looking for assistance, and the option we often have is we can get you something, but it may take 24 hours, it may take 7 days. The longest stretch we had was 30 days in the hospital waiting for psychiatric care because the availability of mental health professionals for the age group is slim. And what happened with pediatric medical care, it's been regionalized. That's true with cardiology, that's also true with mental health. There's financial piece behind that motivation, but most of our centers are few and far between, and so the catchment area is not Warwick, it's not Orange County, it's Ulster, Sullivan, Orange, Westchester, Putnam. They're all competing for the same beds, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you name it. And so that's kind of the barrier we're up against with mental health crises, especially in children. So while we can provide emergent care, which is stabilization, if they come in, we can medicate if we need to. We can do crisis intervention without medications. We do have psychiatric social workers on the ground in our facility, but definitive care doesn't really exist in the probably scale and scope that we need it to. That's not to be a negative statement, that's just the reality of what we are looking at. And so, you know, where do we go forward with this? We've had to get creative. One of the things we've had to do at our own facilities, knowing that kids will come in, they may be with us for a week, is that we try not to keep them in the emergency room. I work there, I live there essentially, my wife will tell you. And so I go crazy sitting in the ER for 7 days. And imagine what someone who's already not feeling great about their day, you lock them literally in a space with no windows, what do we do with them? We try not to exacerbate what's going on, and so we've been able to at least admit them onto our floors temporarily where they get at least natural light, they get a shower, they get access to entertainment of some kind to try to pass the time until we can get them the care that they need. And so those are kind of things we've been able to string together in a system that's fundamentally broken, to be totally honest. So this is kind of the challenge we're up against. We happen to be the bottleneck, meaning the ER, where we are the kind of interface for most people between the community and the inpatient space. And so you have most of the time people come through us. And so it's a unique spot to be in. I'm privileged to be in that position, but we don't have all the tools that you would think we might at our expense. So, and actually you mentioned insurance, just to go on that. Mental health, unfortunately, has been a little bit of a commodity like teeth or eyes. You have health insurance, but mental health often is a second piece or non-existent. And especially when it comes to the pediatric realm, cash is king. And a lot of people are moving more towards cash. And so just to say that out loud as well, that's one of the barriers that we're facing. So I saw my red light, I'll stop. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Knoll. I'm a retired Director of Pastoral Care at the Christian Healthcare Center down in Wyckoff, New Jersey, and I'm also a mental health chaplain, LCSW. But I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to talk about something that maybe some of you have some experience with, but maybe not all. And that's a subgroup of care providers, and that's clergy. Historically, clergy are the first line of defense for people when they begin to feel bad. Before they tend to call professionals, before they tend to call or go to ERs or things like that, they go to the people that are conveniently there for them. And for those of people that are part of a faith community, that would be their pastor, their priest, their rabbi. But even for those people who are not part of a faith community, they tend to look at clergy in their town as leaders. And so they feel safe and comfortable going there, especially if there's not insurance. Historically, what we have found is that for people who are uninsured, they feel they can somehow safely go to a clergy person in town to get some help, or perhaps even some referral. What has happened in the last few years, especially because of COVID, is that we're finding that clergy are retiring and resigning at record rates. That's happening for a number of reasons. One of them is because there is an overload of people coming to them for help that they don't feel equipped to be able to help with. And because there is a lack of accessibility for therapists, a lack of accessibility for psychiatrists, and a number of things that we've already talked about, Clergy are finding themselves overwhelmed with that. In addition to that, because clergy are frequently those people in town that are seen as jack of all trades. They've got to cover mental health issues, they've got to cover religious issues, they've got to cover the social work issues, they've got to cover the first line for all these things that people need in town, and that's where they go. They're finding that the challenges of those are overwhelming, in addition to what's changing dramatically, and that is the nature of religious communities. Religious communities were already changing before COVID. COVID has just taken that and put that on fast forward. So that clergy are faced with incredible need to adjust and adapt the way that they not only define their community, but the way that they minister to their community. And so the stress that's involved in that is causing just a lot of clergy burnout, which is resulting in a lot of retirement and a lot of resignations, as I said. The sad thing about that is that when congregations, whether they be Jewish or Christian or anything else, when they face a loss of leadership, it's getting harder and harder to find leaders for those people, which means that those people of faith in those congregations are dealing with a vacuum of leadership again, as is the community. One of the things that's happening here in Warwick is that there is a resurgence of the Warwick Ecumenical Council that has been kind of unable to do much over the last couple of years because of COVID, but that's beginning to happen again. And part of what we're hoping here in Warwick is that the Ecumenical Council, the clergy in town, will be, again, able to help out in a lot of different ways with some of the mental health things and some of the physical things that are happening. For words of encouragement, you know, if there's anything to say to the people that when it comes time to understanding clergy, it's recognize them for who they are and appreciate them for what they do. But if you're part of a faith community, please make sure that your clergy person is doing the self-care that they need to get. Make sure that they're part of support groups, because clergy by nature tend to think they can do it all on themselves, by their own. They don't need other people to help, and they are people that want to help by nature. So that's another reason why they get overwhelmed with things. So encourage them to make sure they're getting help, support groups, any number of things like that. So when we're talking about ER people and police people getting the help that they need because they also are getting burned out, that's another way to look at what our mental health issues are. It's not just the first line, it's the second line. It's the providers that also really need the care right now. And I think that as a community, we need to be very, very sensitive to that as well. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Kathy Brieger and I represent two organizations tonight. One is Sun River Health, which operates the Alamo Community Health Center and the Alamo Community Center. And on the other side, I'm also the executive director of the Warwick Area Farm Worker Organization. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we're seeing on both ends and kind of what we're seeing in the farm worker community and what we're doing about it. So the community health center side, we've long seen the need for mental health services. In fact, in 1963, when Four Vistas actually did an assessment of needs for the farm workers, mental health was one of the top needs in 1963, which allowed them to get some federal funding to establish one of the first health centers in the country to serve farm workers. We see the same issue happening now. We see so many people in great need, and it's children, it's adults. And it's really started at maybe for 5 or 6 years where people have been under some great stress with immigration and some other things. We had to work with our youngest kids about bullying because they were getting bullied on the bus and a lot of other things, which led to some mental health issues. We're part of the Orange County Mental Health, the Welcome Orange, which means that no one can ever be turned away. We provide mental health services at the Alamo Community Center, at the Alamo Health Center. We have licensed social workers, and because we're part of this large network, we have 46 health centers around the state. We have access to some child psychiatrists and other more advanced, higher level folks. You must be a patient, a medical patient of the health center in order to get that care, but you don't have to be insured. You may be insured, but you don't have to be insured. And this is, by the way, open to everyone, not just farm workers. We've had such a big increase in need. We are really backlogged in getting everybody care. We do look at ACE, which is adverse childhood events, and seeing how that impacts health. And in general, we also do something called the PHQ. On every single patient that comes in, this is a patient health questionnaire that assesses suicidal risk and also other mental health issues. So every single patient that comes in for primary care gets this. I do say that on the WAFO side, Warwick Area Farm Worker Organization, we have trained community health workers who are respected members of the community of farm workers. They've been specially trained in the National Council on Mental Health, well, now it's called Wellbeing, in an intensive course on mental health. So we are able to do outreach, go out into camps, remote places where people are not coming in, and actually help them to identify what are the risks that they may face, what are some of the signs, issues that their children may be having. And so we've also done programs for Migrant Ed, parent programs, Migrant Ed, and also Migrant Head Start to help them to identify some of these issues. We've done a lot of programs to support children. We have a summer program, Dulce Esperanza, which is Sweet Hope, and some of you here are volunteers in that program. But the intention is to provide connection, prevent the isolation that a lot of these kids have, and also some of the things that they may be experiencing, racism and a lot of the other things that they may be targeted. These groups are their home. We also offer other support groups to children, YOLOs, which is the Young Outstanding Latina Organization. We had a great session on social media last week, which also talked about bullying and some of the mental health issues. We really try to focus on supporting the strengths of this community, because out of anybody that I know, they're the strongest. I do say that one of the things last night, we had the boys group, and it was really, when I think about a happy moment, we had about 8 of the kids, and they were doing gratitude cards and making microgreen things. They were laughing and giggling, and I said, did you all drink giggle juice? Because they were just having such fun. But to me, it really exemplified and reinforced the idea, connection, togetherness is really important. And lastly, I'll just say, we're reinstituting a dinner at Kathy's. Before COVID, we would have once a month a dinner, and we'd invite a guest speaker, somebody to come and join us for dinner, and we make something. In fact, Katie Arresto was one of our last people to come before COVID hit, and it was great. And so this week this Monday, we'll be going back to that, and it's just a way that we can connect to each other and actually feel like we're part of one world.
My name is Everett Cox. The day after Thanksgiving in 1966, I enlisted in the United States Army. In 1969, I finished my enlistment in Vietnam. About 2 years later, I was diagnosed as paranoid and/or paranoid schizophrenic. That diagnosis would change 40 years later to PTSD. At that time, in 1969, there was no PTSD. That entered the medical book in 1980. PTSD mimics all kinds of mental health issues: depression, anxiety, drug abuse, and schizophrenia. And it took me a long time to learn to manage, and I did not begin until 12 years ago when I began to speak about it. Some of the more well-known mental health issues that come out of war are PTS, now called, we have dropped the D, it's not a disorder, traumatic brain injury, MST, military sexual trauma, otherwise known as rape. And so, when you enter the Army, the intention is to change you from one person to another. And the person you go in is a moral being who is prohibited from killing. And you're taught to kill. I believe that that alteration of the person goes deep into their heart and soul. When you come out of the Army, you need to change back from that. You need to rejoin your community and be a loving person, loving neighbor, parent, friend. And that transition can be very complicated from a military experience. And so, 10 years ago, New York State created a program, started small, called the Joseph P. Dwyer Veteran Peer Support Program. Joseph Dwyer was a combat medic, served in Iraq. He was filmed heroically saving a child who had been shot during a firefight. But Joseph did not believe in his heroism, and he came home and overdosed. So the program was started. Today, I believe it is started this year, every county in New York State has the Joseph Dwyer program. And we facilitators are called peers. And people say to me, well, who is my peer? And I say, if you raise your right hand and said you would give your life for your family, for your friends, for your neighbor, you are a veteran and you are my peer. Honorable discharge or dishonorable discharge. And with the Dwyer program, we were called to serve all who have served. It is my belief, well, it's my understanding, to start there, that about 40,000 veterans are homeless every night. I believe in my own work with the homeless veterans that if you are homeless, and it doesn't matter if you're a veteran or a civilian, homelessness will drive you crazy. Homelessness will drive you into some kind of mental disorder. If that is compounded by drugs, if that is compounded, I have worked with veterans who have lived in a motel room for 2 years, in a tiny room. And during the pandemic, were afraid to leave that room because of the drug dealing around them, because of the violence around them. They were stuck in that little tiny room for 2 years, and it drove them crazy. They told me the pictures on the wall were talking to them. The Orange County Dwyer program is administered by the Orange County, the Mental Health Association of Orange County. And when I was hired, that was about 8 years ago, I said to them, I don't even like the term mental health. I've had my difficulties with that term. But in those years, we have built a great support group. We have the Hudson Valley Veterans Task Force, which is about 100 agencies willing to help veterans. So there's a lot of positive work happening, but it's a difficult work. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Sander. I've lived in Warwick since 1992. I raised 4 children here, sent them to the Warwick schools. I've worked for Rockland, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've worked for Rockland Children's Psychiatric Center in their outpatient clinic for about 7 years, worked in Ulster BOCES, then I worked for the Menacing Valley School District as a student assistance counselor for 22 years. The whole time I kept a private practice going as well, seeing mainly teenagers. So I've done a lot of hours with teenagers and their families. And I want to say one thing. The number one factor for determining what we call mental health of teenagers is the presence of happy, well-balanced adults. We're all the time asking kids to do a better job than we do. We're asking them to keep away from substances when we don't keep away from substances. We love substances. We ask them to come up with some kind of emotional balance when we don't. This is part of the reason why about 5 years ago I switched my practice to working with couples and relational work with couples therapy. I want us to challenge us to look at mental health as broader than numbers of beds open or even number of clinicians available to sit and have a 50-minute session with someone. So I was talking to Beverly and I came up with an idea of kind of a 3-tier approach that maybe we can sort of use as a springboard. Obviously, the first tier is the crisis work that they're talking about, people who are having suicidal feelings, need someplace to go and be made feel safe to address suicidal behavior. So that's an absolute first tier, and we need more resources with that. Listen to all the work everyone at this table is doing with that every day. It's amazing, and I honor it. The second tier is where we get caught up and people start thinking, we need more therapists, we need more therapists. Yeah, maybe. Not everyone who's having a hard time needs to sit and talk to a therapist. They may need someone to talk to. Think about your own life. Who helped you in your life who maybe wasn't called a therapist, but you sat down and talked with them and maybe they even really helped change your life? That's a broad category of people. Someone good to talk to. Could include clergy, could include all kinds of good people out there. Teachers, janitors, people who specialize in something that you're interested in. And that's the third tier, is to get people involved in activities of meaning. Things that they love to do. Things that they're good at and want to get better at. You know, it doesn't matter if it's assembling soapbox cars or something. Just something that you look forward to that's not sitting in front of a screen playing World of Warcraft all the time. And I think they need to see this. So the challenge is for the adults in their lives to create lives of meaning and happiness. I also think people need to see modeled tolerance and respect for each other, like politically, I feel this person feels differently, okay, I'm not going to demonize that person. I think we can learn a lot from old Mr. Rogers. That's why I used to have this poster up on my wall at Minnesota. Kids come in and make fun of me so badly for that. But then, you know, I showed them some videos of Mr. Rogers and they're like, okay, he's kind of cool. Wasn't he a sniper in Vietnam? It's like, no, he really wasn't. That was a rumor, you know? Wasn't he an Alice Cooper in that band? No, he wasn't. So I think if we get that going, the tier available for crises of the worst sort, helping people find someone good to talk to, may or may not be a therapist, and then activities that they love to do that are not just school-based, getting a grade or pressured, and then we model the same thing, I think we'll be in better shape than we are. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so this is how this is unfolding. While we're I'm not a mean person. There is going to be time for the audience to ask questions. I just didn't want questions to be asked before we hear it from everyone, because some questions will be answered. So what we're going to do is going to shift. This group in the white circular tables will be shifting spaces, but don't move yet. While they're moving, I want you to be focused on something particularly valuable. One is I want you to turn to someone near you and say what's resonating from you. Something you learned or relearned tonight. Something that surprised you. Something that leaves you with a question. If you don't want to talk, one of the other things I have for you, a lot of people have heard of the ACE questionnaire, but have never seen it. There's an ACE questionnaire on your table. It's your personal thing, you don't have to share it. If you don't do it tonight, it really will be an eye-opener. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that in your program, before anybody leaves, I just want to make you aware of this. In your program, there is a list of things that were talked about tonight. I want you, what is resonating with you? What is something in you that you know you know a little bit more about that could be of service to someone? Maybe you're a good listener. I want no one to leave here without looking over that sheet and possibly, if you don't want to turn it in tonight, you can email me at People Warwick. The other thing is a survey. We take very serious the work we do, and we grow from what you tell us needs to be improved. So please turn those last 2 pages in and take that ACE questionnaire home. I have 9 of the 10, and I'm standing here, and I'm okay.
starts. And it's we've had all these people for a long time, but they never got under one roof and discussed it. Coffee, no cream. Not really, no sugar.
So I just brought 48 little jars of water. If anybody needs any, raise your hand. Okay.
Yeah, and water's on both sides of the room.
So we're going to proceed in the same way. We're going to have the first person start, introduce themselves, and focus on the topic that they're here to share, and we'll pass that along. When we're finished, then we will open it up to anybody who wants to either add something to the mix in terms of what they are noticing, what they're doing, or you have a question. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Julika von Stackelberg. I am representing Cornell Cooperative Extension as the Family and Community Resilience Educator. And I am delighted to be here in the presence of you all today. And I will be talking to you about the Orange County Resilience Project, which we started in 2018 as a result of recognizing how important it is to come together to understand trauma-informed care and how we can really produce or increase resilience in our community. And we learned very quickly that A, resilience is not a do-it-yourself project, and also that there is really a trajectory of peeling away the layers. And I think that, you know, Everett Cox, who I think really deserves this standing ovation, and folks who experienced what he experienced is really who we can thank for so much of the knowledge that we have gained as a result of their experiences in trying to better understand what's going on. which is really where the field of trauma-informed care came from. So when we understand the impact of the long-term effects on trauma on our health and well-being, then we understand the need for resilience. And when we really begin to dig into resilience, we realize it's not about doing this yourself or what's wrong with you, and it's really how can we help you grow, and we need a community to do that in order to really come to a point where we are able to harness regenerative well-being. And so we came together with partners in the community. Many partners are actually here in the room, and I really see a beautiful thread connecting us all. And we kind of came to this understanding that we wanted to create general awareness around the issues related to trauma and how to build resilience, and also how to create healing-centered approaches in different sectors through our work. So it's not so much adopting a whole new program, but really shifting the perspectives on how we work. And so creating a shared language is really important because you have to name it to tame it. And so when we have an ability to communicate with each other and understand what we're talking about, then we're able to really look at that together. So we have a number of programs that we're hoping to implement across these sectors. I'll just mention a few. Stacy Orzel here is going to talk to you about Choose Love, which is one of them. Then trauma-informed care and resilience building, or resilience responsive and healing-centered approaches to care. And also a Handle with Care program, which is a partnership between police districts and the school districts to provide the kinds of connections between when an incident happens in a family and the school, and to have an adult who is able to respond, even if not with much detail, but just to know that, Johnny, it's so good to have you in my classroom, did you know that? After he might have had an incident at his home. And I'm happy to provide more information, and we would be happy or delighted to get the Warwick School District on board with this, of course, as well. Other programs are the healing-centered engagement programs, really understanding what that looks like, protective factor frameworks. So and all of these help us to basically build the perspectives that we need to collaborate, to understand, and to create these welcoming situations. Because the kicker is, trauma is really an evolutionary response to an effect that we're trying to adapt to. And so evolution is ultimately incredibly optimistic about our future because it thinks we are going to be able to survive in that way. And so how can we tap into that intention and really harness that as a way, to hold critical hope and to promote programs that create prolonged experiences of love, of feeling a sense of belonging, of feeling connection, and so much of what was here described today, because all of that really stimulates the responses in our physiology that allow ourselves to heal. And so it's not some fancy schmancy something, it's really about being able to connect with one another, to build friendships and connections, and to experience a sense of belonging. And we can do that in our programs, and so many of my colleagues here will tell you how. And really, the thing is, community is a verb, as my friend Yaya said, who opened a bookstore in Middletown called Sadie's. You should all go check it out. It's a verb. We need to be communitying with each other, and I think the puzzle pieces of your logo are a perfect example of why. So, thank you.
Clinical social worker in New York and New Jersey. I've been working in the field of mental health for 22 years, and I sit on the board of directors. I sit on the board of directors for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Orange County chapter. We have an information table back there if anyone's interested in further information about that program. I'm here tonight to share my personal and professional experiences with mental illness, substance abuse, and trauma. I grew up here in Warwick, New York. I lived in Wickham Village on a little cul-de-sac where my parents thought they could raise and keep their 3 daughters safe from the dangers of the world. My family looked normal from the outside. Me and my sisters went to the Warwick Valley Middle and High Schools. My mother was an artist and a stay-at-home mom, and my dad a business owner. We had clean clothes, we celebrated holidays, attended church, rode bikes, and played outside with the neighbor kids. To any outside observer, we looked like the quintessential happy family, and nothing could have been further from the truth. When I was 14 years old, my bottom dropped out of my world. In the span of 1 year, my family had been shattered by my older sister's devolution into severe mental illness and addiction. My older sister had always been my hero, my protector, and my best friend. I worshipped her, and in just a few months, I watched her destroy herself with alcoholism and drug abuse. I followed her there into madness and addiction, just like I followed her every move prior to this. In the summer between 8th and 9th grade, I began abusing cannabis and alcohol. I went to parties in my neighborhood with kids 3 and 4 years older than me. I snuck out of the house repeatedly, and no consequence was enough to stop me. Eventually, alcohol and cannabis gave way to a severe depression. My story of recovery is a long one. It took me many years to find the right medication to stabilize my depression, and even longer to acknowledge the trauma that led me to abuse substances in the first place. If you asked me when I was 10 what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said a psychologist. It was my dream. I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology from Northeastern in 2004 and a Master of Social Work degree from Simmons University in 2009. I interned at Harvard University's Criminal Justice Institute, working with offenders with mental illness and substance use disorders, and I loved my work. Connecting with people around issues of trauma, mental health, and addiction, and really hearing and acknowledging their stories and validating their humanity filled my spiritual well in a way that nothing ever had before. And I began to realize the importance of this act of listening and sharing, of creating a compassionate space for people to share their pain and their wisdom, the depths of their suffering and the heights of their resilience. Because you see, I am those people. We are one and the same. We have this illusion that we alone suffer in isolation, that we are abnormal, and the fear of being stigmatized is so great that we stay silent. We suffer in the dark and in the quiet. Trauma, mental illness, and addiction are so stigmatized in this society, and this is a fundamental part of what keeps us sick. Stigma is a negative, pervasive, and judgmental attitude about a given population. We call people who suffer with substance use junkies. We ignore the homeless and the mentally ill and think of them as other. Stigma is an insidious thing and sneaks into every part of society. My clients come to my counseling couch suffering not only with emotional health and trauma issues, but also with internalized stigma. They feel different, wishing they could be normal and not damaged goods. In the silence and in that shame, trauma and addiction flourish. I've come to understand that in order to heal, we need to begin to share our stories. We need to create a dialogue around these issues. We need community and conversation. Human beings are interdependent creatures. We do not thrive in isolation, but only in community. For us to come together and heal from trauma, we must first acknowledge our own humanity and our own experiences with suffering. What we do not acknowledge cannot heal. We must extend that compassion to ourselves and to each other. We need to share, to listen, and to speak, to acknowledge and validate our own and others' experience with trauma. We need to come out of the quiet shadows in courage, to join with each other so that we can begin to rebuild our sense of community and health and well-being. I started this talk by sharing my own personal experience in healing from mental illness, addiction, and trauma, and I encourage you to start this conversation with each other. Out of great suffering comes great beauty and healing. Recovery is possible, and we can help each other get there through compassionate and non-judgmental discussion. I want to thank Beverly Braxton and We the People for creating this space in which we can share our stories. This is how recovery begins. Thank you.
I'm feeling very emotional after listening to that. So please don't start my time yet. Wow. Thumbs up to you. They say all us redheads are related. Nice to see you again, cousin. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. Our parties are always only as good as our people, I like to say. I'm a proud mom of 2 amazing boys, and my younger child is affected with autism, which is what changed my path when I had him almost 16 years ago. So at this time, I'm going to share from a parent perspective the many hats that I've chosen to wear and volunteerism in the community and resources that I now share to other families on behalf of advocating for Eric. I'm going to start with talking about how important it is to have a friend. Eric is an artist, and he painted this wonderful little painting. He has a cartoony style of painting. This is a picture of him and his brother, who is his best friend. Gratitude is a positive attitude. I am grateful for my friends. So, like the gentleman said, you have to have a person that you can talk to. And that can change your world. So think about who are your persons and talk to them. During the pandemic, I joined the Choose Love movement. It's a social and emotional learning curriculum. And that is no longer just a buzzword, it's a reality. We have to embrace teaching social and emotional mental stability and wellness to young people so we can build stronger young adults who become adults and eventually elderly. The Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement that I'm connected with, I am the New York ambassador as a volunteer with this amazing program, which is no cost, was founded by Scarlett Lewis. She very sadly buried her young son at only 5 years old in the Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut school shooting. Scarlett is an incredible mom and a very strong advocate. When I met her in a parent training at the Monroe Woodbury School District with a SEPTA, I never left her side. After I heard her talk, we connected. I said, how can I help you more? And she said, we're looking for a New York ambassador. So here I am. The Choose Love formula is courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion equals Choose Love. We have programs, again, that are no cost on the website for the schools from pre-K through grade 12, but then we have extension programs for communities, for families, for first responders, and also an athletics program that's for coaches and athletes. Another proud hat I wear, also because of my son, is that I'm a Special Olympic swim coach. And this is really great work. It's my passion. I'm at the pool at the Goshen Aquatic Center every Sunday for an hour and a half. I like to thank them. If you are a member there or not yet, they have us train there and haven't charged me $1 in 8 years. And it's an incredible experience. We have anywhere between 15 and 30 athletes training each week. I'm seeking buddies if anyone is interested in working with our athletes in a one-on-one or a small group opportunity. Please see me. I do have a table in the lobby. I recently, a Lifetime Achievement, went to Orlando coaching the state team, and I had one of my athletes with me who achieved in the games in Florida, so that was really amazing. The Special Olympics are statewide and national, and if you're not connected with them in any way, your Warwick School District is very active, and there are many other districts, but our teams are community-based, so we don't stop at any specific age. I have other volunteers that I work with, and we train 5 teams right here in the community. Thank you very much to the Warwick School District. We train track and field and basketball there weekly. We also have weightlifting, basketball, bowling, and the swim team. So that's really amazing. I love that. I'm going to move on by talking about something my Eric says often, which is problem. When I say problem, you say solution. Okay, so this is my little guy. He's got full language. He's not able to think in layers too much, but he certainly knows problem solution, and that's something we've taught a lot over his years. Scarlett Lewis, the founder of the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement, likes to say, Anti-bullying isn't really the solution. The solution is to teach social and emotional learning. So use the formula. I'm so proud to be here. I think community and the relationships that we build are vitally important. Thank you for listening. I look forward to making more friendships here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Reale. Currently, I'm a parent coach. I started my career 20 years ago as a public school music teacher. I spent 6 years teaching elementary school and high school bands. After 6 years, I decided music was not my passion. I could no longer do it, but I love children, and I found my way into early childhood education. Spent 9 years there, then 4 years as a stay-at-home mom, and now I just finished my first year as a small business owner. But I want to go back to my early childhood years. I found a job at this amazing school in North Carolina, and they believe that children should be playing outdoors, playing with loose parts, play, play, play. And they also believe in something called conscious discipline. And I was introduced to conscious discipline in 2011, and have been studying, practicing, and volunteering with the organization now for 11 years, almost 12. And it has had such a huge impact in my life. They are, the founder is Becky Bailey. They've been going strong for over 25 years now, and they are adult-first, brain-based, trauma-informed philosophy, and they believe that children, they believe that our approach to children is through a love-based approach rather than a fear-based approach. They do a lot with brain science and educating teachers and parents on the brain and the workings of the brain. And they also, so we start with that layer. And once we learn the functionings of the brain, we move on to looking at ourselves. And when we see a child and they have a behavior, we see that behavior as a call for help or a missing skill. Rather than punishing them, we need to help them and support them and love them. And then, of course, connection on top of that. And that is the most important thing that we can give a child. And I'm so honored to be sitting here right now amongst all these amazing people to share what I do. I now have a business, it's called Playing Together, Being Together, and I take all the beliefs that I have learned, play-based approach, and conscious discipline into my business, and I work with parents, with infants and parents and toddlers and parents and 3 and 4-year-olds, and I just give classes based around play and connection because I truly feel that connection is the way to save our children.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie Freitas and I'm with Voices United for Change. So Voices United for Change is a grassroots organization that is made up of parents that have children or young adults with mental health challenge and young adults themselves that identify as having a mental health challenge. And our mission is to provide support, knowledge, and resources to meet the social, emotional, behavioral, and educational needs of families, youth, and young adults in Orange County in the most respectful, family-driven, youth-guided, and culturally competent way. And I had to read that because I couldn't say it better than what our mission statement is. We do this through one-on-one support, so if you're a parent and you're struggling, you can reach out to us and we will help you, we will listen to you without judgment, we will help you find services that you need, we will help your youth find services that they need, and we also have support groups that are funded, thank you Michael, through the Orange County Youth Bureau. We have virtual support groups for teens on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of the month, and we have flyers out there on the table. And we have support groups for the parents on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of the month, and again, we have flyers out there. So we are made up of, like I said, parents and young adults. We have a board of directors that runs Voices, and we are currently looking for new board members. There's a flyer out there about that as well, if anybody is interested. We also offer trainings. We offer youth mental health first aid and mental health first aid. We offer family roadmap trainings, and like I said, one-on-one supports. We do outreaches such as these to help educate people. Our support groups are headed up by myself and my friend over there on our board, Becky Johnson, and we are both certified family peer advocates, and our youth support groups are headed up by two certified youth peer advocates. And am I missing anything back? No. Okay. So then I also work for Access Supports for Living, and I am a certified family peer advocate, like I said, and also a New York State certified peer specialist. And we offer peer supports through our department. We offer family peer support, youth peer support, and transitional age peer support. And if anybody would like to know more about that, if anybody has any questions, we do have a flyer out there, well, a brochure out there on the transitional age. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask me. Thanks.
Thank you. Wow, this is amazing. I am so thankful. Thank you, Beverly, and the people here for inviting us and having this amazing panel. I just have to say that in the last 15 years since I've been doing the work that I will tell you about in a minute, this is really inspiring, and it's growth in our own backyard. And I am so grateful for this. So thank yourselves for coming out and doing mental health on a Thursday night before a Friday, which is no school tomorrow. So my name is Judy Batista. I am with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I am a volunteer, board member, as well as an amazing program that they have, which is called Healing Conversations. Healing Conversations is meant to do one-on-one for those of us who have suffered a loss. And I'm talking about a loss to suicide, which brings me to putting a face on this. I lost my son, Danny, and I want to make sure that people know about this, because what we are doing here, what everyone is doing here, is to prevent what happened to us, okay? I'm on the other side of this, and you do not want to be on the other side of this. So please keep this going. My son, Danny, was 20 years old when he died from suicide. My husband and I moved to Warwick about 32 years ago. We lived down the street, literally down the road, on a Brady Road. This was our hiking trail. We brought both of our sons, his older brother and him, and he had a great life. He loved going hiking and fishing and just about everything. And then we, had another daughter who was born here as well. So we raised our family here, my husband and I. And he went to the Warwick High School. He was part of the trumpet chorale, Orange County. He was just talented and amazing, beautiful young man. I really want you to know that, because Danny to us does not represent the typical person that you would think that would take his life at such a young age. Yes, he was a young man, and he, I'm sure, was not perfect. At 16, he had an incident that he was taking drugs, he was experimenting, and Rocco and I decided to put a stop to that and put him in rehab. And it was only for a couple of weeks, for a week, but then he decided at the age of 16 that he was gonna do it for the whole 30 days. Because as he used to say, school of hard knocks, Mom, that's how I'm gonna learn. And so then after that, He was good. He was good. He was 16 all the way up until that dreadful day that we got that call. Okay, and I believe probably you were there, and ambulance were there, and we got the call that he died. How? He took his life. And that we could never reconcile, because that was the last thing that we thought that my son would do. He had a calendar full of things that he was going to do. It was just beyond. So needless to say, that really just really pushed us, Rocco and I, to do something. It's like, wait a minute, if this could happen to us, it could happen to anyone. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here. I go out and I do a lot of research, and I wanted to learn everything there was to know about suicide prevention. How does somebody, you know, what are the causes and all of that. Believe me, I am not a therapist, I am not a counselor. I am just a mom that do not want another family, that does not want another family to go through this. So that's why I'm here, that's what I'm passionate about, that's why I volunteer for this suicide prevention, that's why I started a foundation, and do all of these other things. You know, that's just how I grieve. I grieve out loud. It's not the same for everyone, and it's okay. We all need to find our way and how to make a difference, and how to, you know, get our children, talk to our children, learn all there is to know. That's what I'm going to tell you. Learn everything that you need to know. You don't have to be an expert, and I appreciate every expert here, but, you know, it takes a village. It takes a village, not only for children, but for our veterans, for those of us who are out in the trenches, as we say. You know, we see it. You know, I do a support group, and we see everything that you heard today about people, you know, taking their lives, and you know, everything. We hear everything because the support group is a peer support group, and everyone's gone through after the fact. So learn all there is to know, and I'm going to say, as Danny would say, okay, because I believe that he did not want to hurt himself. He did not want to kill himself. He wanted the pain to stop. And that's what that's about. Remember that. Everyone is different. We want the pain to stop. And so what he would say is keep going. I speak to a lot of people, and they really, you know, the ones that are attempting, and they really don't want to, you know, they don't want to die. They just want the pain to stop. They need help. And we can do that, and we can learn how to do that. And I'm sorry, I know it's like a minute, 30 seconds, but the manual is really good, okay? There's hope, there's help, and there's healing. And thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Bark. I work at the Orange County Youth Bureau. We're a county department that receives county and state funding for fund youth programming throughout the county. Before that, I was at Access Supports for a Living for many years, working with adults with developmental disabilities, autism, and traumatic brain injury, helping them achieve personal goals and gain independence. We do two things at the Youth Bureau. So, as I said, we receive funding, we fund programs of all types, after-school programs, in-school programs, summer programs, from West Point to Port Jervis, nonprofits, municipalities, every village and town in between. Everything from LGBT support groups to boxing programs to recreation programs, free lunch programs. The reason we do it, everything is under the umbrella of positive youth development. What does that mean? It's something that a lot of speakers have spoke about today. If you put a young person in the presence of one caring adult who's got their finger on the pulse of what that child is doing, is looking out for them, their outcomes are better. It doesn't matter if it's raising rabbits through a 4-H program, building drones in the city of Newburgh. You have to have programs that appeal to young people from 0 to 21, which is what we do. So we fund programs, and we monitor programs, and we provide a lot of support. What does that support mean? Well, that gets the second half of what we do at the Youth Bureau. We do a lot of trainings. My colleague Anne-Marie Freitas and I are youth mental health first aid trainers, and the last time I was in this building is when Kutz Camp was still here. Anne-Marie and I were here teaching youth mental health first aid to the counselors. It was 2 weeks of orientation. They got first aid training. They learned how to use the AED machine. They learned how to do CPR, and Anne-Marie and I taught them youth mental health first aid. It was a full day training, and it's intense, recognizing the differences between typical youth development and the beginning of what might be the onset of a mental illness. Because mental health issues, the age of onset is often adolescence and teen years. So if you're working closely with young people, oftentimes you see things that their parents don't see, their caregivers don't see. So what we do is help them recognize the signs and make sure they know what the resources are. It's particularly important in this camp because a lot of the camp counselors weren't even from the area, let alone Warwick, weren't even from New York. Let them know you're going to be working with young people, vulnerable people, away from home, and they're bringing their issues with them. If they need help, this is what help looks like. Also during the summer, we taught youth mental health first aid to youth pastors, school coaches, bus drivers, SRO officers. Town of New Windsor Police Department reached out to us in June, and they said, we'd like to get all of our officers trained. Can you come? Of course we can come. We did one day, and they said, no, you got to come 2 days. Do 2 separate trainings, because we also want our police advisory board there. Monroe Woodbury School District, we did 2 trainings of all of their SRO officers. Port Jervis Police. And I mentioned bus drivers, and I just want to touch on that again, because youth mental health first aid for school bus drivers, as far as I was concerned, was the best training we ever did, because you have one bus driver, 40 kids behind them. They see how they interact with their parents as they get out of the house. They see subtle things that the teachers don't see. Are they isolated? Are they picked on? Do they sit by themselves? Are they usually social, but now they're isolated? Giving them tools. One last training before that I want to focus on. We teach Safe School Ambassador Bullying Prevention Program, which is an evidence-based violence and bullying prevention program. We're currently in 16 middle schools and high schools in Orange County and Marlboro Middle School. We're going to do the high school next year. It's not a 45-minute assembly where the kids come down, we tell them bullying is bad, and then the school district checks off a box. It's 2 full days where the school identifies influential peers. And we ask them, pick some folks some students who are on the verge of maybe some discipline problems that represent the school district. And we have difficult conversations about supporting themselves, supporting targeted students who might be in crisis. And one thing we do before we leave is we make sure that every student, especially high school students, have text routines, not just the flyer, but stored in their phone as a contact. And I urge everyone here to grab a flyer in the back and encourage the adolescents or teens in your life to store it as a contact. Why? You don't want to wait until there's a crisis to start Googling stuff. Store it, store as a contact, treat it like an EpiPen or an asthma pump. Hopefully you'll never need it, but if the crisis does develop, you have it stored and it's handy. Thanks very much, everyone.
And I'm the coordinator of the Mid-Hudson Prevention Resource Center. We receive funding, so I'm also employed by the Alcoholism and Drug Use Council of Orange County. So the main agency that I work for, ADAC, provides services inside the Orange County area. My specific program provides services to a 7-county region, including Orange. Excuse me, of course, like 2 people down, my throat started getting scratchy. It was fine all the way up until there. So I apologize for that. Oh, I have my water right down there. What I want to talk really quickly about is some of the services that ADAC provides and the other programs that we do. And then I'll get quickly into my program and sort of how I'm working with
the wonderful woman here next to me who is working directly in Warwick doing some of the work I'll talk about from a regional level. So the Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Council has a couple of main programs. Our main purpose is information and referral. Anybody can call our offices Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and talk about where to get services, substance abuse, mental health. We are also, someone mentioned earlier, being a member of Welcome Orange. Our agency is also a member of Welcome Orange, and that means that you can call us. You're homeless and need to find help. We will help connect you to an agency that provides those services via a warm handoff. And so really information and referral is the main thing for ADAC. Call, ask if you need help, right? In addition to that, we have some other programs. So we have something called peer engagement specialists. Their job, as somebody mentioned earlier, peers, is to engage with people who are interested in entering into recovery from substance use disorder, and also people who are in early recovery, who need just those additional supports in the community. On top of that, we also administer the Stop DWI and traffic safety grants, which work for preventing DWI. They also run the Victim Impact Panel, which is a panel that if you've ever had a DWI, it's something you have to attend as an offender. In addition to that, they also do things like senior car safety, making sure your seat is adjusted appropriately for your height, and then also child safety, seat checks as well, and bicycle health safety. We also have the Treatment Alternatives for Safer Communities program, which helps those who have nonviolent felony offenses to be able to enter the treatment services as opposed to going into prison. And then they case manage that. We also have a family support system, family support navigator, whose job is to help the family members of the person who is suffering from a substance use disorder. So as many of us know, and this is where I get into the youth, right? If a child has a parent who has a substance use disorder, they are immediately at higher risk for all of the things that we have talked about today. And so really what we need to do is provide additional services to them. That's what our family support navigator does. They help the family find the services that they need to stay strong and supportive so that their loved ones can seek treatment and get better on their own. And then lastly is my program, which is the Mid-Hudson Prevention Resource Center. Our goal is to work at the community level. So these programs are all really fantastic, and they really help individuals every time we turn around. But what happens when you walk out of those doors, of that clinic, of that school, of that doctor's office? What environment are you walking into? What does Warwick support as a community? Do we have wide availability of substances like alcohol and other legal substances? Marijuana is one that's coming. When we look at the research connected to the high potency marijuana products, there is little doubt about its negative impacts, especially upon youth and adolescent developing brains. So one of the things that we need to be aware of is that mental health and substance use disorders are not two separate tracks. They overlap. Many times we get asked the question, chicken or the egg? Did the anxiety come first or did the marijuana use come first? And we can't answer that question. What we can do is provide those individuals with support and also create a community that embraces the healthy behaviors, that embraces things like behavioral health and mental wellness, and supports those types of decisions. So who do I work with in Warwick? Well, I work with the Warwick Valley Community Coalition, which Frankie's going to talk about in a minute, and I work with coalitions similar to hers across the 7-county region. And their goals are to reduce substance access and availability within their communities in hopes of creating better, brighter futures for our youth and our families.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francesca Bryson, and as Jen said, I am the coalition coordinator for the Warwick Valley Prevention Coalition. We are a nonprofit organization here in Warwick, and before I give you a little bit of background information on who we are and what we do, I just want to let you know why I am currently in this position or how it came to be. So I am a former Warwick graduate. I graduated in 2010, and while I was in high school, a vast majority of my peers were using substances. By senior year, a lot of them were in rehabs across the country. But about 5 years ago, an overdose hit my home front. So my brother and I lost a friend at 23 to a heroin overdose. And from that day forward, I said, how can I make a difference in my community? So 3 years ago, this position fell into my lap. And I'm still learning, so bear with me. I literally take it day by day. So we're a nonprofit organization, and our main goal is to reduce the use of alcohol, marijuana, and other substances amongst youth in our community. And the organization started in 2009 with the Warwick Community Center and the school district, as well as the police department. We are currently in our 5th year of drug-free community funding, and we are going to be applying for years 6 through 10 shortly. We meet the 4th Thursday of every month from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Warwick Community Center to discuss important topics and initiatives and concerns. I'm always looking for volunteers, parents, and youth to come get involved and help me achieve this goal. So our main mission is to reduce the use of alcohol, marijuana, and other substances amongst youth and preventing the onset, all while encouraging wise and healthy choices amongst the entire community. So what do? We provide outreach events, community education, we provide surveys and assessments. We educate the parents on the dangers of substance abuse, use, signs, and symptoms. We have youth programs such as our Youth Coalition, currently consisting of roughly 35 middle schoolers and high schoolers that are meeting 1 to 2 times a month on important initiatives they like to host in the town and within their school. We help strengthen laws and deter youth from using substances. We work with local businesses to promote a healthier Warwick. We support the prevention efforts within our schools. We create opportunities for youth to become role models within their community through our Summer Youth Leadership Academy. We hold forums, trainings, and environmental scans with our National Guard. And we hold important events within this community. So you may or may not know that we held National Night Out with the Warwick Police Department on August 2nd, and we drew in roughly 1,000 community members, and we had over 30 interactive booths consisting of volunteer members, resources, fun initiatives and games, all to prevent substance use prevention and crime. We held an Orange County Youth Wellness Festival. We organize and initiate Red Ribbon Week throughout our school district. We hold National Drug Take Back Day with the police department, and this year we collected 107 pounds of expired unwanted medication. We have forums and presentations within our schools. Recently we held Mallory's Army with our middle school that had roughly over 180 in attendance, both parents and students. It was a suicide and cyberbullying film that we all watched. We hold hidden mischief training within our schools, a town hall back in March, and we provide Narcan trainings throughout the year, and we have trained roughly 100 people in the community with the National Guard. Our next training is being held November 18th from 5:30 to 7:45 p.m. at the Warwick Community Center. Thank you.
So I am Vincent Pinavaya. I'm a high school, I'm a senior right now. I'm 18 years old. I'm new to all this, but I recently, last year, so what I did is I made the Sit and Chat Club in my school. So what it basically is, it's a place for like me and my friends to talk about topics that you usually don't talk about with your friends. So last year I grew kind of lonely with the pandemic and all, and I wanted to go closer with my friends. So I made I made a Google Doc where I would learn more about my friends, grow closer to them, and maybe even learn more perspectives on life. Some questions were like, you know, what's the purpose in life? Or what do you think your purpose is? Do you think people can change? What was your dream? What was your childhood dream? Stuff like that. And each conversation ran about 30 minutes, and I had it with each person individually. It was really cool because each person, like, sure that I'm friends with people of similar views, but each person's questions and answers were like, they were all unique in their own way. And that's what kind of drew me to make the club with the school. Because I'm like, I'm really interested in wanting to help, like how everyone else here said, like, having that place to talk to where you might not need a therapist, you might not need a psychiatrist to help you, you just need a friend to talk to or to help you talk. And someone, like maybe you don't want to talk to someone who's like 20 or 40 years older than you want to talk to your classmate sitting right next to you.
Breaking my heart over here.
That's why I wanted to make that club. It's still on like the workings of it, but I'm really excited to see what it is, and more members and all of that, and yeah. So thank you very much for having me.
One of the things that I have discovered in this process of talking to people, because, I'm like making this road as I'm walking it. It's not like I've been here before. But what I see consistently is that building connection. Like when I met Vinny and he told me about opening up a deeper level of talk, conversation with students. And I said to him, this is the path of wellness. When you say or raise questions that you think may not be understood, and someone looks at you and says, wow, you're giving me permission, those are my thoughts. It's like a lot of young people have really deep questions. And that not knowing where to place those questions, or even knowing that it's okay to have those questions. We really have to open those deeper conversations. Everything is so superficial in our society. Kids come. I've worked with 8-year-olds who were amazing human beings at 8, and I've learned so much from them. And where does that go when you see it so young, and then over time it's not affirmed? You're not asking them, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? Where do you want to go? And I think that is the path to wellness. And so I was saying to Vinny, you're onto something. And everybody here is onto something, really. And I think even in this room, I want to open it up to say, what's going on in you right now about what you heard and what may be something you hadn't thought is possible for you as a way of connecting. I know that one of our members, do you want to say anything, Abby, about connecting with you? You want to come up? Or is that too much of a walk? She's about to have a baby. One of the things, another group that we work with, we and People, Abby's a part of it, is asking young people, asking them for their voice. So she's going to just share a couple initiatives. Can you speak off the cuff?
So I'm Abby May. I'm part of the youth engagement team, which is one of the teams within Youth of People Warwick. And we have 2 initiatives currently specifically geared towards tweens and teens in the Warwick community, one of which is a survey that we have. It's very brief, it's only 4 questions, asking teens, their parents, their guardians, people who are interested in working with teens, what their immediate needs are so that we can try and better serve as a group through our programming and things that we have available for Warwick youth, and just to also give them, we want to make sure that we're creating a space for them to have their own voice and tell us what they need and not just presume what they need. So I know we have some hard copies available.
Yeah, we have some hard copies and it's on our website. We really, anybody, it's for adults who are working with kids and who are concerned about kids as well as young people.
Yeah, if you go to our website, it's really easy. It's a quick Googling. It's only 4 questions. It would be so helpful. We have a little over 200 surveys, but it's not enough, and so the more we can get, the better. And our other initiative is we currently have an art, poetry, and essay contest open to any Warwick teen to share their vision of what it means to belong to the Warwick community that we would love, just as a way to hear youth in Warwick express what their vision of belonging in this community is. And so that's something else we have available. Our submission deadline is coming up, but I'm sure
Can I just share with you one of the questions we came up with in youth engagement? What do you feel are some of the greatest challenges facing you or your peers between 11 and 18-year-olds? And we have a whole host of things, and actually we got feedback before we even created this and put it out. We passed it by teens at the high school, a couple. And they said, you know, you need to put things down there because teens aren't going to just come off the top. But so we have choose the most critical in terms of service. So we have anxiety and depression is one, drug and alcohol abuse, 2, time management, body image, mass shootings, gender identity and expression, racial stress, peer pressure, academic support, bullying, uncertain future, political stress, trouble at home, family relationships, confidence, climate, and anxiety. Choose 5, up to 5 things that you think are critical on the minds of young people. And then we don't just stop there, we go to, when thinking about 11 and 18-year-olds, which of the following might be good ways to provide support? Then we have a whole list of what do you think we could do as a community to support young people's growth and hopefulness? And we also have the question, what are you most hopeful about? We want to see, are they hopeful? What's happening? So these are some of the things that I think if we can start with what's real for people, including the people in this room, we can get somewhere. We have to ask the harder questions. So are any people here with questions that they want to ask the people who spoke tonight, or who are wanting to share something that they think would be beneficial for people to know? Oh, great. Okay. Do you mind coming up to the mic?
I can speak loud enough.